When it was first announced, Doom on Switch sounded pretty darn crazy, but now that I've played it, it's definitely crazy in a good way. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from Switchforce. I've got Gabe here, and yesterday I was in New York City to play some Bethesda titles, one of them being Doom on Switch. This is what I was most excited to check out, where I went first. I got to play through the demo twice, once with Joy-Con, once with Pro Controller, and then a helper from Bethesda was kind enough to play through so I could record it. But Gabriel, I was impressed. It actually looks, plays, runs, performs pretty darn well.
Doom, one of the best shooters in the last 5 years, in my opinion. Played it on PC, 60 FPS, 1440p, the whole nine. So it's going to be a little interesting to see how it performs on Switch. 30 FPS, obviously in handheld is how you played it. I think that's like the biggest thing that people are concerned about, the performance of the game and just visually, how does it look? And so did the 30 FPS thing, like, was that jarring to you to the point where it was a huge distraction or no?
It wasn't, and there was a surprising, I don't know if issue is the right word, but a gameplay obstacle that I'll get into in a moment, but it wasn't the frame rate. I don't know if it's because I was playing on the smaller screen. It didn't really seem noticeable. It actually looks good. Does it look as crisp as what you played on PC or what I played on PS4? No, but it looks pretty darn good, and I was impressed that the Switch can do this, because obviously this is a very intense test for the Switch. It's a fast-paced game. It's a pretty good-looking game. I mean, it doesn't have insane environments or anything like that, but it was a very pretty fast-paced, gory, intense shooter. So I think if you're going to try something third-party, this is a great one to put, the Switch through its paces. And overall, like, it felt like Doom. It looked like Doom. It played like Doom. And I'm guessing they had us play on handheld because it probably looks less comparable when it isn't docked. I feel like the smaller screen size probably does it some favors, but you're looking at gameplay now, and this is just off screen, obviously recorded, but it looks like Doom. Like, the Switch is putting out some pretty graphics.
All right, so let's put the 30 FPS thing aside for a second. Was the frame rate that it was running at, like, was it stable? Like, did you see any like frame drips? Was there like, and not that we're seeing like a bunch of like games with like screen tearing or anything like that. I don't think that's happening on the Switch. But did it drop at all, or was it able to maintain the frame rate like at a decent like uptick to where you weren't noticing anything?
Yeah, I thought it performed very well. I believe not in this playthrough, but in one of my two demos, there was a slight hiccup at one point, but I'm going to attribute that to just development and not some overall issue, because as you're seeing here, it functioned and ran pretty good. Now, some of the effects, like the blood and the fire, don't look as good. I would say that, like, honestly, the audio to me was less good than the visuals, which is weird.
Look at what's plugged into, like, that doesn't look like I don't know what headphones it is. Like, that doesn't look. Maybe the headphones were the issue. Is my only point. Yeah, they
could have been. The obstacle I wanted to get into briefly that it's sort of hard to pinpoint is I found, and you'll notice how this person plays. I found myself side strafing more than right stick aiming. Now, I don't know if that has something to do with the way the controls are calibrated, or more so the fact that the screen is small, so fine-tune adjustment with the right stick is more difficult than it would be on like a 27-inch monitor or a freaking 50-inch TV, and so side strafing made more sense than adjusting the reticle.
Well, I would find myself doing that in Doom sometimes on PC as well.
Yeah, but this was more than... This was like a notable thing of like, it was tricky for me to be as pinpoint precise as I wanted to be. And I went in and looked at some of the controls, and I changed some of the settings, and it wasn't that. So I honestly think it has to do with the fact that you just look how much screen real estate we're working with here, and you're looking at a bunch of enemies and a lot of speed. And I don't feel it was the frame rate. I feel it's honestly playing on this smaller screen just is a little bit trickier to line up your shots.
Yeah, or maybe a combination of both, the 30 FPS thing plus the screen. So you could be right as far as that goes. But, Bethesda had some interesting comments as well that we're going to touch on here. But, it is good to know that, like, it seems to me like you think this is a comparable, like, port that people for the most part will be happy with. Is someone going to play this and on the Switch instead of on their like PC that can do 4K? Probably not. But for the people that don't have a PC at all and this is going to be their first time experiencing Doom, like, do you think they'll still be happy with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is a far better example of how, third parties can port to Switch than Skyrim. I also got to play Skyrim. Yeah, it's a 10-year-old game. I know a lot of people are very excited for it, and the content is there. It didn't look that great, and I don't think that's anything to do with the Switch. I think that's just that game.
Yeah, that's not Doom, though.
No. And, NBA 2K18 was a good example. This is a good example, and this being a first-person shooter, I think it really opens the door for so many options, kind of like we discussed in previous videos. Like, anything can kind of come to Switch now. Like, very little in the way of limitations if you're able to pull off Doom. And, they can't do some online-only stuff like Destiny, and sure, there's going to be some visual, amazement that's difficult to do. But I was impressed with how well this ran. Now, I will say that playing with the Joy-Con and handheld was very difficult. The positioning of the sticks, the way the buttons are laid out, just my hand positioning, I was not a very good Space Marine.
Yeah, this is going to be a pro controller game for me for sure.
Yeah, and they definitely were like, we really recommend you play with the Pro Controller, but I wanted to see how it ran in handheld, just because I think that's something people will do and be interested. I mean, you could still play it, but it definitely was just far more controllable and far more felt like Doom with the Pro Controller. The Pro Controller is like a good controller. It's a great proves controller. Its worth. Yeah, proves its worth in a first-person shooter, just like it has in every other genre thus far. I am interested and excited to play it docked. I do want to see how it runs and looks on a TV, and I want to see if sort of my aiming issue, my side strafing thing is solved by that, or how I can get a little more granular with what that issue was, because it did feel a little weird. And if you pay attention to this gameplay, you'll kind of see that she does the same sort of thing. But in general, it looked good. I'd say that the colors were not as vibrant, and I'd say that it wasn't as crystal clear as I remember it on PlayStation 4. But in general, you're watching this, if you saw someone playing this or you were playing it yourself, it's definitely 2016 Doom. And Bethesda is in a cool spot because they're very committed to the Switch. And they talked about how there's probably a lot of demand for something like this on the Switch. And obviously they said they can't, measure it. But a lot of people want to experience these kinds of games, whether it's Doom or Skyrim on Switch, and they asked how well do you think they're going to sell? And obviously Bethesda didn't give a prediction, but they did say, which I think is real smart of them, that we're very much understanding that not everyone on the platform knows the Elder Scrolls or knows this stuff, so they're not expecting the same sales as they expected on other platforms, which I think is real critical. One, the install base just isn't there, and two, this is a console ecosystem where people are used to buying Mario Kart and Legend of Zelda and maybe, a Madden. So it might be a little bit tricky at first, but I think if they stay committed like they sound, it's going to work out well. And they definitely showed that level of dedication by saying, quote, "We're obviously excited about these two games, but it's not as if we're going to just do these two games and that's it. We want this to be the start of a relationship that we build with Nintendo and Nintendo fans." So Bethesda sounds all in, and that's exciting because that could mean, Fallout ports, that could mean upcoming things. Wolfenstein 2 is a really, really fast-paced, really intense, really beautiful game. I got to play that as well. I can't really talk details, but, I've played it before at E3, and I can tell you it's a very beautiful, very intense, very fast game. It's not coming this year, but when it does, it's going to be another one that, if that works out well on Switch, you can pretty much do anything.
For sure. And, the demo's going to be closing out here soon. So is there any, little things that you may have noticed about Doom just to close off here?
Button layout wise, it was pretty darn good. I played
exactly the same as consoles, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and they had a bunch of control options. I'm not sure what they're all called. The one I was using was Knuckles, but there's a bunch of different control options like you'd expect. It seemed like there weren't any they handicap the options or something like that. That felt pretty good. Frame rate, yeah, people are kind of trying to analyze what it's going to be. Not sure until we see docked.
Can I throw a theory out there?
Yeah.
And I have nothing to back this up. But, maybe the reason that they're only showing you handheld right now is because they're trying very, very hard to get
60.
To get 60 on docked, and it's just not they're not there yet. And maybe that's why they're not showing that. Because, Bethesda has said, hey, we're trying to give people on Switch, the real, fast-paced Doom experience. So that to me says that like they're trying very hard to get to 60. I just don't know how feasible it's going to be for them. But if they can hit that, and maybe that's the reason why they weren't allowing it, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that's a possibility.
Especially since multiplayer, being in the game. Just very quick, a little side thing. You're going to have to download the multiplayer separately on Switch.
Right.
So just wanted to make sure to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I think, they maintain their holiday release. They're able to get this thing out before Christmas. Like, it's a great way to expand your Switch library with something that's going to be completely different from Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart, and Snipper Clips. So you'll go play those, and you'll be like, all right, now I'm diving into Doom. And that's pretty sweet. Overall, I came away super impressed. I thought it looked better than I expected it to. It's obviously not, it doesn't have the guts of an Xbox One X, it doesn't have the guts of a PS4 Pro, but the Switch is a pretty impressive little machine. And I think for a hybrid console from the big end to be able to pull this off as well as it did, you got to feel great about it. So let us know your take on Doom in the comments down below. Thanks to Bethesda for inviting us out there to check it out. It was a lot of fun. I cannot wait to play more of it and see how it performs docked. Until that time, though, give us your take. Are you guys excited for Doom? Do you think it looks good? Any specific questions you may have, let us know. Until then, though, thanks so much for watching. Fantastic day. For myself and Gabe, Switch Force out.